What happens when a man sent to take a life finds his own heart beating for the very girl he was meant to kill? In the dark streets of Los Angeles, a feared gangster walks into a café with one mission: end a life. But one look into her eyes changes everything. Love crashes into violence. Fate collides with guilt. And a killer becomes the man who risks everything for a single heartbeat of truth. Will love be his redemption, or his final mistake? Stay till the end to feel the most emotional twist you will never forget. And if this story makes your heart beat faster, subscribe now for more unforgettable stories like this one. The night air was heavy with rain. Neon lights flickered across the cracked pavement of downtown Los Angeles. A black car stopped under a broken street lamp. Inside sat Marco Reyes, a man feared by many, trusted by few. His hands rested on the cold steel of a silenced pistol. Tonight's job was simple. Find the girl. End the problem. Leave no trace. He stepped out, his boots splashing through shallow puddles. The alley smelled of gasoline and rain-soaked trash. Thunder rolled far above the skyline, echoing through the narrow streets. Marco checked the photo in his pocket, a young woman with soft eyes, standing near a coffee shop window. Her name was Lily. Target confirmed. He moved closer, the rhythm of his heartbeat matching the steady drip of water from a rusted pipe. Inside the café, the girl sat alone. She stirred her drink absent-mindedly, eyes lost in thought, unaware of the man watching her through the glass. Marco raised the gun slightly, hidden beneath his jacket. One breath. One pull. One life gone. But something stopped him. Her laughter, light, fragile, real, floated through the sound of the rain. It hit him like a memory he never wanted to remember. He froze. For a moment, the world outside blurred, and only her face remained clear. The warmth in her smile was something he had not seen in years. Not since before the gang. Not since before the blood. His hands trembled. He tried to steady them, but the gun felt heavier now. She turned, her eyes meeting his through the glass. Time slowed. There was no fear in her gaze, only a quiet sadness, as if she already knew why he was there. Marco lowered the weapon slightly. His chest tightened, breath shallow. For the first time in a long while, he felt human again. A spark, dangerous, forbidden, lit inside him. He wanted to walk away. He wanted to save her. He wanted to forget the world that made him this way. But the sound of a phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from the boss. Finish it now. Rain began to fall harder, beating against the glass like 1,000 ticking clocks. He looked at her again, at the way her eyes reflected the light, at the calm in her face, at the innocence his world had stolen long ago. Marco took a deep breath and pushed open the cafe door. A soft bell rang as he stepped inside. Warm air hit his face, carrying the scent of coffee and vanilla. Every step felt heavier than the last. Lily looked up, smiling politely, unaware of the storm that followed him in. He reached into his coat, slowly, carefully, but this time, his fingers hesitated on the trigger. His voice, rough and uncertain, broke the silence. "Are you Lily?" She nodded. Her voice was gentle. "Yes. Do I know you?" He looked at her, truly looked, and something inside him broke. He could not speak. He could not move. And as the door behind him opened again, footsteps echoing, Marco realized he was no longer the hunter. He was the target. Marco turned his head slowly. The sound of wet shoes on tile echoed like thunder inside his skull. Two men entered the cafe, both dressed in dark coats, their faces hidden under hoods. He knew them. They were his people. The boss had sent backup. To make sure the job was done. To make sure there were no mistakes. The first man's eyes met Marco's. Cold. Empty. A silent message passed between them: do it now. Lily looked from one face to another, confusion crossing her soft features. "Is everything all right?" she asked, her voice a whisper that barely held together. Marco's throat burned. He wanted to tell her to run. He wanted to tell her everything, about the gang, about the job, about how her name had come to rest on the wrong list. But no words came out. The first man reached inside his coat. Marco stepped forward instinctively, blocking Lily from view. "Go back," he muttered under his breath. "What?" "Please. Just go." Her eyes widened. Fear began to bloom where innocence once lived. Outside, lightning flashed. The power flickered. For a heartbeat, the café went dark, only the streetlight outside remained, painting everything in silver and shadow. When the lights returned, the two men stood closer. Guns out. No hesitation. No mercy. Marco's pulse roared in his ears. He reached for his weapon, the same one he had sworn to use on her, but now, it was aimed at them. "You are making a mistake, Marco," one of the men hissed. "Orders are orders. Step aside." "I am done taking orders," Marco said quietly. The air between them thickened. No one moved. Only the rain tapping against the window. Only Lily's trembling breath behind him. Then, the first shot. Glass shattered. People screamed. The barista dropped behind the counter. Lily ducked, hands over her head. Marco spun, firing once, twice, both bullets finding their mark. The two men dropped to the floor, blood spreading like dark ink across the tiles. Silence. Then the sound of sirens far away, growing closer. Marco's gun slipped from his hand. He turned toward Lily. Her face was pale, eyes wide, tears balanced on her lashes. "You killed them," she whispered. "I had to." "Who are you?" He could not answer. Because for the first time in his life, he did not know. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the fear, the confusion, the heartbreak he had created. The sirens grew louder, blue and red lights flashing through the rain-soaked windows. He grabbed her hand. "Come with me," he said. "I am not going anywhere with you." "Please, Lily. If you stay, they will kill you too." Her breath caught. "Who will?" "My people," he said, voice shaking. "They do not leave witnesses. And they do not forgive betrayal." The café door burst open. "Police?" "No," another car screeched outside. More men. More shadows. Marco pulled Lily through the back door, into the alley drenched with rain. The cold air hit them like knives. He could hear footsteps chasing behind. They ran, past dumpsters, broken fences, narrow corridors that smelled of rust and smoke. Lily stumbled, but he caught her arm, pulling her up. "Keep moving." They turned a corner and pressed against a brick wall, gasping for breath. Rain dripped from his hair, running down his face like sweat and regret. Lily's eyes were locked on him. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Because someone wanted you gone." "But why?" "I do not know yet." He did not. The order had come from above, nameless, faceless. A routine job. A meaningless name on a list. But now, it was not meaningless anymore. She was real. She was breathing. And she was everything he never thought he would feel again. The sound of engines roared in the distance. They were closing in. He looked at her, the way the rain clung to her eyelashes, the way her lips trembled between fear and trust. Something inside him hardened. He made a decision. "We cannot run forever," he said. "We need to disappear." Disappear where? Someplace they will not look. Somewhere far from the city. Lily hesitated, then nodded, just once. Her hand slid into his. It felt warm, fragile, alive. They moved again, slipping through the maze of alleyways until they reached the edge of the city. A train yard stretched before them, endless lines of steel and shadow, the scent of diesel and rain. Marco helped her climb into an empty freight car. He followed, slamming the door shut just as headlights flashed nearby. Darkness swallowed them. Lily's breathing echoed softly beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The train began to move, slow at first, then faster. Through the small crack in the door, he could see the city lights fading into the night. Lily turned toward him. "Why are you helping me?" He closed his eyes, searching for an answer. "Because you made me remember what it means to feel alive." She did not reply, but her silence said everything. As the train rumbled into the darkness, Marco knew there was no going back. He had killed his own men, defied his boss, broken every rule of the life that had once defined him. And now, for the first time, he was afraid, not of dying, but of losing her. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the photo that had started it all. It was wrinkled and wet, edges torn from the rain. He looked at the image of the same girl sitting beside him now, alive, breathing, trembling. He tore the photo in half and let it fall to the floor. The train rattled on. But in the distance, somewhere far behind, the world he had left began to stir. The boss would not forgive. The gang would come. And when they did, there would be nowhere left to hide. Lily leaned her head against the metal wall, her eyes closing from exhaustion. Marco watched her in silence, a thousand thoughts tearing through his mind. Could he protect her? Could he save them both? The rain outside turned heavier, drowning the sound of the train wheels. In that endless noise, one truth settled deep inside him. This was not love born from peace. It was love born from chaos. And chaos was coming for them. The train screamed into the night, carrying two souls running from fate. One trying to forget what he was. The other trying to survive what he had done. Far behind, in the glowing streets of Los Angeles, a phone rang in a dark office. A voice answered, calm and cold. "Marco Reyes is alive. And he took the girl." The reply came, low and certain. "Then bring me his heart." The night swallowed the city behind them. The train thundered through miles of open desert, the sound of its wheels echoing like a heartbeat in the dark. Inside the freight car, Marco sat with his back against the cold steel wall, staring into the shadows. Lily slept across from him, her head resting on her knees, her breathing slow and soft. Every few minutes, the light from a passing signal flickered through the cracks, painting her face in flashes of gold and black. Marco could not look away. He tried to remind himself that she was never meant to be part of his world. She was a name on a list. A target. But now, she was his only reason to keep breathing. The wind outside howled. He ran his hand through his wet hair, every muscle in his body tight from fear and exhaustion. He knew the boss would not stop. When the boss gave an order, it was final. And Marco had not just failed the order, he had broken it in the worst way. He had killed his own men. There was no forgiveness for that. He could almost hear the voice of his boss, low and calm, saying the words that had haunted every man in the gang. "There is no escape from the family." Marco clenched his fists. For the first time, he wanted to believe there was. The train slowed as dawn began to rise, the first light stretching across the endless horizon. Lily stirred, lifting her head slowly. Her eyes met his, soft and heavy with questions. "Where are we?" "Heading east," he said. "Probably through Nevada by now." She rubbed her arms, shivering. "What are you planning to do?" "I do not know yet." She looked at him for a long time. "You could have killed me. But you did not." "Why?" He hesitated. "Because I saw myself in you," he wanted to say. "Because you reminded me of the person I used to be before I lost everything." Instead, he said quietly, "Because you did not deserve to die." Her eyes filled with tears. "And what about the others you killed before me? Did they deserve it?" The words cut deep. He looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. "No. None of them did." Silence filled the space between them. Only the rattle of the train broke it, steady, relentless, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Lily hugged her knees. "You are running from them now, right?" "Yes." "And they are coming for you?" "Yes." "And me?" He met her eyes. Yes. She swallowed hard. So what happens when they find us? He took a deep breath. Then I die first. Her breath caught. That is not a plan. It is all I have. The train screeched as it entered a tunnel, throwing them into complete darkness. Lily gasped, startled. Marco reached out instinctively, his hand brushing against hers. Do not be afraid, he said softly. The darkness pressed around them. In that moment, it felt like the whole world had disappeared. No gang, no blood, no orders. Just two souls trapped in a storm they did not choose. When the train emerged from the tunnel, light flooded the car again. Lily was staring at him, eyes glistening. You could leave me, she said. You could still walk away. I already did, he replied. The moment I chose you over them. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The train began to slow again, the whistle echoing through the open land. A small desert town appeared ahead, a handful of buildings, a diner, a gas station, a lonely motel sign flickering in the wind. Marco stood. This is where we get off. They climbed down as the train slowed to a crawl, jumping onto the dusty ground. The sun was just rising, bathing everything in soft orange light. For a brief moment, it felt like peace. But Marco knew better. Peace never lasted. They found a small diner at the edge of town. The waitress gave them a tired smile as they sat in a booth. Lily ordered coffee. Marco just watched the door. Every sound, every car passing outside, made his hand twitch toward his coat. Lily noticed. You are not safe anywhere, are you? He shook his head. Not anymore. She leaned closer, her voice quiet. Then maybe we stop running. He frowned. What do you mean? Maybe we fight back. The words hit him like a spark. No one had ever said that to him before. He had spent his whole life taking orders, following the rules of a world built on fear. Now, this girl, this stranger he had been sent to kill, was telling him to stand up against everything he once served. A slow, uncertain smile touched his lips. Fight back, he repeated softly. You have no idea what you are asking. Her gaze did not waver. Then show me. Before he could answer, the bell above the diner door rang. Two men walked in. Marco froze. They were dressed like travelers, but he knew the look, the stance, the way their eyes scanned the room. Killers. Lily followed his gaze, her heart pounding. He leaned close to her and whispered, Go out the back. Now. No, Marco. Do it. She hesitated, then slipped out of her seat and hurried toward the kitchen door. The men noticed. One of them reached inside his jacket. Marco stood up fast, knocking the table over. The first bullet tore through the window. Screams filled the diner. Marco dove behind the counter, pulling out his gun. He fired twice, one man fell, the other ducked. The smell of gunpowder filled the air, thick and sharp. Lily's voice shouted from the back, calling his name. He ran toward her, heart hammering. Another shot rang out, pain ripped through his shoulder. He stumbled but did not stop. He reached the back door, burst through it, and grabbed Lily's hand. Blood soaked his sleeve, warm and sticky. She looked at him in horror. You are bleeding. I have been worse, he said through gritted teeth. We have to move. They ran across the dirt road, into the ruins of an old gas station. He pressed his back against the wall, breathing hard, gun shaking in his hand. Lily tore a piece of her shirt and pressed it against his wound. Her hands trembled, her eyes full of tears. You are going to die if you keep this up. He met her gaze, pain and fear burning behind his dark eyes. If I die, he said quietly, at least it will mean I tried to save something worth saving. Footsteps echoed outside. The remaining man called out, his voice mocking. Marco Reyes. You know how this ends. The boss wants you alive, but not for long. Marco smiled faintly. He always loved his little games. He looked at Lily. You ready to run again? She nodded, even though her body shook. Good, he said. Because this is just the beginning. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the empty town. The chase was far from over. And somewhere, miles away, a phone rang again, the voice of the boss cold as steel. Do not fail me this time. I want both of them. The war for love had begun. The wind howled across the empty road. Dust swirled like ghosts through the sunlight, dancing around the ruins of the old gas station. Marco pressed his back against the cracked wall, his breath shallow and uneven. Blood seeped through his fingers, dark and slow. Lily knelt beside him, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. You need help, she whispered. We need a doctor. He shook his head, jaw clenched. A doctor means attention. Attention means death. Her hands trembled. You will bleed out. I will not, he said, though his voice betrayed the pain. Not yet. Outside, the sound of tires screeched in the distance. Engines. More of them. Lily's heart stopped. They found us. Marco's eyes narrowed. He peered through the shattered window. A convoy of black SUVs crawled down the road, their windows tinted, their presence like a dark tide rolling toward them. The boss had sent a message, and it had arrived. Marco reached for his gun again, reloading with one hand, each click echoing like a countdown. Lily grabbed his wrist. You cannot fight them all. I do not need to fight them all, he said quietly. I just need to keep you alive. Why? She asked, tears spilling down her cheeks. Why are you doing this for me? He met her eyes, and for a moment, the world outside disappeared. Because once, he said, someone saved me when I did not deserve it. And I let that person die. I will not let that happen again. Her lips parted, but no words came. The engines grew louder, dust clouds rising. Marco forced himself to his feet, his shoulder burning, his body shaking with adrenaline and exhaustion. He looked at the empty road beyond the station. One direction led to open desert, endless and exposed. The other led into a narrow canyon of rocks and dry riverbeds. He made his choice. Come on. Lily hesitated. Where are we going? Somewhere they will not follow, at least not easily. He pulled her along, moving fast, staying low, the roar of approaching vehicles chasing their every step. They ran across the sand, their shadows stretching long under the cruel sun. Bullets cracked behind them, sending up bursts of dust. Lily screamed, ducking low. Marco turned, firing back, his shots clean and precise. He hit one tire, then another, one SUV spun out, crashing into another in a violent twist of metal and smoke. But the rest kept coming. They reached the canyon, slipping between walls of jagged red rock. The air was cooler here, shadows stretching deep and long. Lily stumbled, catching herself on the stone. Marco stopped, panting hard, blood dripping from his wound. He looked around, the canyon split into two paths. He cursed under his breath. Which way? Lily asked. He stared at the ground, reading the terrain like an old instinct. Left. There is water that way. Maybe a way out. They ran again, their footsteps echoing off the stone. Behind them, voices shouted, the gang had entered the canyon. The hunt was closing in. Lily's legs burned, every breath a struggle. She looked at Marco, pale and limping, yet still leading her forward like a force that refused to die. How long can you keep doing this? She asked between gasps. As long as it takes. They turned another corner, and stopped. The path ended in a steep drop. Below, a dry riverbed stretched for miles. Lily looked down, panic rising. We cannot jump that. Marco scanned the edge. His eyes landed on an old rope bridge, weathered and half-broken, swaying in the wind. He tested one of the ropes, it creaked but held. It will have to do. She stared at him. It will break. Then do not look down. Gunfire echoed behind them. There was no time left. He motioned for her to go first. She stepped onto the bridge, gripping the ropes tightly. Each board groaned under her feet. Halfway across, the wind picked up, the bridge swinging wildly. Marco followed, his weight making the ropes strain. Halfway across, a bullet struck one of the wooden planks. The bridge jerked. Lily screamed, clinging to the ropes. Marco reached out, grabbing her wrist just as the board beneath her cracked away. Her legs dangled in the open air, nothing below but the endless fall. "Hold on," he shouted, pulling her up with every ounce of strength he had left. The bridge swayed violently. He dragged her up onto the boards. They crawled the rest of the way to the other side, hearts pounding. The moment Marco's boots hit solid ground, the bridge gave one final groan, then tore loose, collapsing into the ravine below. Silence. Only the sound of their breathing. Lily looked back, trembling, eyes full of tears. They cannot follow now. Marco stared across the canyon. The men stood on the other side, their guns raised, shouting in anger. "No," he said softly. "But they will find another way." He turned toward the horizon. "We keep moving." They walked through the canyon until they reached an abandoned cabin buried in the rocks. Inside, it smelled of dust and forgotten years. Marco collapsed into a chair, the world spinning. Lily ran to him, pressing her hands against his wound again. "You are losing too much blood." "I will be fine." "You will not," she said sharply. "Let me help you." She tore her sleeve and wrapped it around his shoulder, tightening it until he winced. Her hands were stained red now, trembling but steady. When she finished, she sat beside him, silent for a long time. The wind whistled through the cracks in the walls. Finally, she spoke. "What happens now?" He leaned his head back, staring at the ceiling. "They will send more," he said. "They always do. But if I can make it to the border, maybe." He stopped. Lily frowned. "Maybe what?" He turned to her. His voice was low. "Maybe you will live." Her eyes filled again. "You keep talking like you are already dead." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe I am." She reached out, touching his hand. "Do not say that." The warmth of her touch broke something inside him. The armor he had built his whole life cracked in that moment. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not the target, not the mistake, but the only good thing left in his world. "Lily," he whispered, "if anything happens to me, do not say it." "Listen," he insisted. "There is a number in my jacket pocket. Call it if you ever need help. The man who answers owes me a life. He will get you out." She shook her head, tears falling. "I am not leaving without you." "You might have to." The sound of engines echoed faintly in the distance again. They both froze. Marco stood slowly, grabbing his gun. "They are not giving up," he said quietly. He turned to her. "Stay behind me." "Marco. Do not argue." He looked through the crack in the wooden door. Black vehicles moved across the distant ridge, growing closer. The boss had sent everyone now. This was the endgame. Marco tightened his grip on the gun, blood dripping from his bandaged hand. He looked at Lily one last time, his voice low, trembling but steady. "No matter what happens, you run when I tell you. Do you understand?" She shook her head, crying. "I will not leave you." He smiled sadly. "Then I guess we die together." Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the sky bled red. The storm was coming. And in its heart, love and death waited side by side. The sky turned crimson as the last light of day bled across the desert. The wind carried the low growl of engines, closer, louder, certain. Inside the old cabin, Marco stood at the window, staring toward the horizon where black dots were forming in the distance. Each dot meant death. Each one meant another man sent to finish what he refused to do. Lily stood behind him, her hands trembling, eyes wide with fear. "Marco," she whispered, "how many are there?" He did not answer. He could not. He already knew what was coming and what it would cost. His reflection in the dusty glass looked like a ghost, pale, bleeding, exhausted. He touched the window, leaving a streak of red where his hand slid down. "They are too many," Lily said softly. "We will not make it." He turned to her, his voice low but steady. "We will try." She shook her head, tears shining under the fading light. "You cannot fight them all. I have fought worse. You cannot win. I do not need to win." The way he said it made her chest tighten. Outside, the roar of the engines grew louder, a chorus of violence echoing off the canyon walls. The air itself seemed to tremble. Marco moved to the table and began checking his weapon, one clip, half full. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a second gun, handing it to her. She stared at it in horror. "I do not know how to use that." "You will if you have to." "I cannot." "You can," he said firmly. "If they come through that door, you shoot." Her voice cracked. "I do not want to kill anyone." He met her eyes. "Then you will die. And I cannot let that happen." He walked to the door, looking out again. Dust clouds rolled like waves across the valley. The gang's vehicles spread out, circling the canyon, trapping them like wolves closing around wounded prey. Lily stepped closer. "Marco, please. We can run. There must be another way." He smiled faintly. "There is always another way. But sometimes, the way out is through the fire." She reached for his arm. "You are bleeding too much. You cannot even stand straight." He looked down at her, the fear in her eyes, the pain, the raw hope that refused to die. And something inside him broke all over again. He cupped her face in his trembling hands. "Listen to me," he whispered. "If I fall, you run. Do not look back. Do not stop. You keep moving until you find someone to help." Her tears fell freely now. "Stop saying that." He smiled, the faintest flicker of warmth through the pain. "You remind me of someone." "Who?" He hesitated. "My sister. She had eyes like yours, full of light. I could not save her either." Lily's breath caught. "What happened to her?" "She was taken," he said quietly. "Because of me." His voice trembled, the memory clawing at him. "I was supposed to protect her. But I chose the gang instead. I thought loyalty was everything. I thought I was strong. But strength means nothing when you lose the only thing that made you human." He swallowed hard, forcing the pain down. "She was 15, he said. They used her to punish me when I refused a job. I never saw her again." Lily covered her mouth, her body shaking. "Marco." He took a deep breath. "You look like her. That is why I could not pull the trigger. The moment I saw your face, everything I buried came back." The engine stopped outside. Silence. Then, footsteps. Dozens of them. Voices shouting orders. The sound of metal, guns being loaded, safeties clicking off. Lily's hand gripped his arm. "Marco." He raised a finger to his lips. "Stay quiet." He peeked through the window, men in black suits spread out, surrounding the cabin, moving with cold precision. And in the middle of them, a tall figure stepped forward, his face lit by the dim orange glow of the sunset. The boss. Marco's chest tightened. He had not seen that face in years, calm, elegant, merciless. The man who had made him. The man who had destroyed him. The boss looked toward the cabin, his voice echoing like poison. "Marco Reyes," he called. "You have made a mess." Marco gripped his gun tighter, jaw clenched. "You always were sentimental," the boss continued. "You think you can save her? You think you can run from me?" His voice lowered, darker now. "You are not a man anymore, Marco. You are just a ghost waiting to be buried." Marco closed his eyes for a moment, steadying his breath. When he opened them again, the fear was gone. He turned to Lily. "Stay behind the wall," he said softly. No matter what happens. She shook her head. You will die. Maybe, he said. But if I die, I want it to mean something. He kissed her forehead, then stepped toward the door. Outside, the air was still, that strange quiet before chaos erupts. He opened the door and stepped into the open. The desert wind whipped at his jacket. Dozens of guns aimed his way. The boss stood in front, smiling coldly. Drop it, Marco, he said. You had your chance. Marco's voice was calm. You made me this, remember? Every scar, every kill, your orders. And now you break the chain, the boss sneered. You think you are free? I do not want to be free, Marco said quietly. I just want her to live. The boss laughed, the sound hollow and sharp. Love, he said. Always the weakest disease. He raised his hand. The men cocked their guns. And in that split second, Marco moved. He fired first. The sound shattered the air, echoing off the canyon walls. The first man fell. Then another. Bullets tore through the dust. Lily screamed from inside the cabin as gunfire rained around them. Marco dove behind an old truck, reloading, blood pouring down his arm. He returned fire, hitting 3 more before a bullet grazed his leg, sending him stumbling. The world blurred, the sound, the smoke, the pain. He saw the boss standing calmly, untouched, watching like a man observing art. Still the same Marco, the boss said. Still fighting for ghosts. Marco crawled toward cover, panting, every breath a stab of agony. Inside the cabin, Lily clutched the gun he gave her, shaking. She heard footsteps approaching the back door. She aimed, hands trembling, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The door burst open, a man entered. She pulled the trigger. The sound cracked through the silence. The man fell. She dropped the gun, tears streaming down her face. Outside, Marco heard the shot. For a moment, fear froze him, but then he saw her through the broken wall, alive, crying, covered in dust. Relief hit him like a wave. But when he turned back, the boss was gone. The men were retreating into the shadows. He looked around, confused, body shaking. Then he heard the faint sound of a car engine behind the cabin. He ran, limping, breathless, pain blazing through every nerve. When he reached the back, his heart stopped. The boss had Lily. She struggled in his grip, his gun pressed against her head. Let her go! Marco shouted. The boss smiled. You love her, do you? Enough to die for her? Marco raised his weapon. You already know the answer. The boss tilted his head. Then prove it. The night fell silent again. The wind stilled. 2 guns aimed, one for love, one for power. The next move would decide everything. The door creaked wider. Cold air swept into the café, bending the candle flames on every table. Marco's eyes flicked toward the entrance. 2 men stepped in, tall, sharp suits soaked from the rain, eyes cold like empty glass. He knew them. They were his brothers once. Now they were sent to finish what he could not. Lily turned, a small frown crossing her face as she noticed their gaze fix on Marco. Her fingers tightened around her cup. Something in the air changed, a weight, invisible but real, pressing down on every breath. Marco's heart hammered in his chest, each beat echoing like gunfire in his mind. He could feel the ghost of every choice that led him here. Every life taken. Every lie told. Every drop of blood that built the world he now wanted to destroy. The men took slow steps toward him, their shoes clicking against the tiled floor. Marco's hand brushed the inside of his coat, but Lily's voice stopped him. Are you all right? Her tone was calm, but her eyes searched his with quiet fear. For a moment, he wanted to tell her everything, the truth, the job, the reason he was standing there with a gun instead of a heart. But he could not. He swallowed hard. The taller man reached for his weapon beneath his jacket. Marco, he said softly. You had one job. The name rolled through the air like a death sentence. Customers turned, confused, sensing danger but not understanding it. Lily's eyes widened slightly. She whispered his name under her breath. Marco. It sounded strange coming from her lips, gentle, unjudging, human. He had never heard his name spoken like that before. The shorter man stepped closer, hands still on his gun. Walk away, Lily, Marco said quietly. Please. But she did not move. Her voice trembled. What is going on? Thunder cracked outside, shaking the glass windows. One of the men smirked. She is the reason, brother. Do not make this harder. Marco turned toward them fully now, standing between Lily and the danger that was once his own reflection. She is innocent, he said. She does not deserve this. Innocent, the man scoffed. No one is innocent in our world. The next moment felt endless, like the universe held its breath. The first man drew his gun. Marco reacted without thought. A single shot exploded, shattering the silence in the front window in one heartbeat. Screams filled the café. Lily ducked behind the table as glass rained down. Marco felt the burn of the bullet slicing across his arm but did not stop. He fired back, once, twice, until one man dropped and the other stumbled, disappearing through the shattered door into the storm. Smoke drifted through the air, mixing with the smell of blood and coffee. The world slowed again. Lily stared at him, eyes wide, trembling. You were supposed to kill me, she whispered. Her voice broke halfway through the sentence, cracking like fragile glass. Marco lowered his weapon and nodded slowly. Yes. The word hurt more than the bullet. Tears welled in her eyes, reflecting the flicker of fire from the ruined candle on the counter. Then why are you protecting me? She asked. He took a step closer, pain cutting through his side. Because I saw you, he said. And for the first time in years, I remembered what it feels like to be alive. She looked at him as if searching for truth buried deep in his broken soul. Outside, sirens began to echo, faint at first, growing louder with every heartbeat. They were running out of time. Marco glanced toward the street. More cars would come. More guns. More death. He turned back to Lily. We have to leave, he said. Now. But she shook her head. I cannot go with you. You are one of them. I was, he said quietly. Not anymore. He reached out his hand, but she hesitated, eyes flicking toward the fallen man on the floor, the proof of everything he was. Blood crawled across the white tiles, inching closer to her shoes. Her breath quickened. Marco saw it, the fear, the confusion, the war inside her. He lowered his hand slowly. Lily, he said, voice breaking. If I stay, they will kill you. If you stay, they will kill us both. You have to trust me. Something in his tone, the way it cracked like truth torn from pain, made her move. She took his hand. For the first time, her fingers touched his, warm against the cold metal scars of a man who forgot what love felt like. They ran. Through the rain, through the flashing lights, through the city that no longer had a place for either of them. Each street was a memory. Each corner a ghost. The world blurred into streaks of neon and shadow. Marco's wound burned, blood soaking through his sleeve, but he kept moving. Behind them, tires screamed. Voices shouted. The chase had begun. Lily stumbled, breathless, and he pulled her close, holding her against a wall in a dark alley. Rainwater poured down his face like tears he refused to shed. Who are you? She whispered. He looked into her eyes, those same eyes that once stopped his finger on the trigger. A man who made too many wrong choices, he said. But tonight, I choose you. She stared at him, half in fear, half in something she did not understand. The sound of engines roared closer. Headlights cut through the rain at the end of the alley. Marco pressed his back to the wall, pistol raised, every sense alive with fire. Lily's hand found his sleeve again. Her voice trembled. Will we make it? He looked at her, the rain washing blood from his face, and whispered, "I do not know. But if I die tonight, at least I die as something more than a killer." The alley lit up in flashes of white and red as the cars stopped. Doors slammed. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate, final. Marco tightened his grip on the gun. He turned toward Lily one last time, his eyes soft, his voice steady. "When I say run," he whispered, "do not look back." The storm swallowed his words. And then, the night exploded in thunder, light, and gunfire. Rain poured harder, washing the city in silver light. Smoke drifted through the narrow alley, curling around broken bricks and shattered dreams. Marco lay against the wall, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. His gun was empty. His hands were trembling. But his eyes, they were still alive. Lily knelt beside him, her hair soaked, tears mixing with the rain. "Marco," she whispered, voice shaking. "Stay with me, please. You cannot leave now." He smiled faintly, blood staining his teeth. "You called my name like it mattered," he said softly. "No one has done that in years." His hand reached for hers, fingers barely strong enough to hold on. "You saved me without even knowing it." Her tears fell faster. "You saved me too," she said, pressing her hand over his wound as if she could stop time itself. Sirens echoed in the distance, faint but drawing closer, a promise and a threat all at once. The rain glimmered on his face like diamonds, and his voice broke again, fragile but filled with truth. "I wanted to end a life tonight," he whispered, "but instead, I found the reason to live one." Lily shook her head, refusing the words that hung like final breaths between them. "You are not dying," she said. "We can still run. We can go far away. Start over." He smiled again, that tired, broken smile of a man who had already made peace with the universe. "People like me do not start over," he said. "But you can." He pushed a small folded photograph into her hand, the same one he had carried on his first night here. Her photo. "When I saw this," he said, "I thought it was just another job. But now, when I look at it, I see everything I ever wanted to protect." Her sob turned into a quiet scream swallowed by the storm. The headlights grew brighter at the far end of the alley. Shadows of armed men emerged through the mist. Lily turned, panicked. "They are coming." Marco pulled her close, his voice trembling but strong enough to command her heart. "Listen to me. Run when I say run. Do not stop. Do not look back." She shook her head violently. "I am not leaving you." He smiled through the pain, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "Yes, you are," he said softly. "Because if you stay, all this, everything, will mean nothing." The world seemed to hold still. The storm, the sirens, the chaos, all fading under the sound of her crying. He kissed her forehead, his breath warm and fading. "Lily," he whispered, "you were never the target. You were the reason I remembered who I am." Gunfire cracked in the distance. Marco turned, raising his last bullet, his body weak but his eyes burning like fire. "Run," he said again, louder this time. And she did. She ran through the rain, through the noise, through the heartbreak that tore her in two. Behind her, the sound of gunfire grew, sharp, deafening, until it suddenly stopped. Only the storm remained. Lily stumbled into the empty street, her heart pounding, her breath shaking with grief and disbelief. She turned once, just once, to look back at the alley that swallowed the man who came to kill her and instead chose to love her. Police lights flashed red and blue, painting the rain-soaked city in sorrow. Somewhere in the distance, dawn began to break, faint, fragile, new. And in that light, Lily made a silent promise. To remember him. To forgive him. To carry his name in the quiet corners of her heart, where love and pain would live forever side by side. Because some hearts are not meant to last, they are meant to awaken others. And Marco Reyes, the gangster who came to kill, became the man who gave his life for love. The rain stopped. The world exhaled. And somewhere between the last drop and the first ray of morning light, a soul found peace. If this story touched your heart, if you believe love can change even the darkest soul, then do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Because every story here will make your heart feel something real. Something unforgettable. Red heart sparkles.